OK, let's move on to our next subject, shall we? Because earlier in the show, we heard how hydrogen-powered planes could make flying more sustainable. Now, hydrogen doesn't produce any CO2 emissions. Its only waste product is water. So could this be the start of guilt-free flying? I mean, Vicky, everyone's going to like the sound of that. So what do you make of this project to try to develop a liquid hydrogen fuel aircraft?
Well, if it were to work, that would be absolutely brilliant. It's been talked about for some time, but the interesting thing is that the airline sector, that accounts for something like 2% of global CO2 emissions at present, but rising, has already managed to improve its efficiency very significantly. But I think that would make a huge difference. I mean, we know that it isn't going to solve the problem completely in terms of aviation, because there are lots of other things that come out in the atmosphere when you fly at high altitudes. But it will certainly make a big, big difference, because basically the CO2 would no longer be emitted. It will just, the waste would be water. But if you're able to do long distance and have the right aircraft that is able to support it, then obviously it will make a tremendous difference in terms of how we can envisage the future in a clean sort of net zero environment, which hydrogen, I think, can do. And there are expectations that it might actually, by 2050, supply something like 25 to 35% of all energy needs.
Donnachadh, how optimistic are you?
I think there's an extraordinary press release by the government. If you read the detail in it, it says if the technological barriers, which they say are big, are breached, then they may produce a plane by the 2030s or 2040s. What's going to happen to aviation during the 20s and 30s as we emit huge amount of fossil fuels? And the second issue, both of you have mentioned water as a byproduct of hydrogen planes. 50% of the global warming emissions from planes currently come from water vapor. It heats the planet. So what we will do with this plane is we'll reduce the carbon emissions by 50% and double the water vapor emissions, so we end up with the same amount of global warming. This is nonsense. We need to do, what the government needs to do is tackle the vast amount of people who are rich, who are flying unnecessarily. 4% of the global population fly abroad each year. We need to tackle the frequent flyers with a tax and reduce that wasteful carbon emissions.
Very briefly respond to that, Vicky. The water vapour aside, just the fact that short term people need to fly less, and there's a huge proportion of people that don't fly at all. What about the others?
Well, the truth is, of course, that flying has brought lots of countries together and has encouraged growth. And remember that flying isn't just for the pleasure of people, it actually carries a lot of freight. So what's been happening recently, in particular, given that we had problems bringing anything by sea, is that airplanes have substituted, if you like, or moved in to take off that load and ensure that the supply chain works. So we shouldn't look at flying as just something that people who can afford it can do.
Donnachadh, got 10 seconds, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, replacing shipping with air freight is probably quadrupling the carbon emissions from that transport, if not more. It's completely unsustainable to be switching to airplanes for freight.